Before this story truly begins, before you decide whether what you're about to hear feels right or wrong, before you judge the choices, question the decisions, or think you already understand what love is supposed to look like, let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever felt completely alone while sitting right next to the person you married? Not after a fight, not during a breakup, but in silence, in routine, in the quiet moments where nothing is technically wrong, yet everything inside you feels empty. If stories about real emotions, about painful silences, about difficult decisions, and uncomfortable truths speak to you, then pause for just 1 second and subscribe to this channel right now, because this channel isn't about fairy tales. It isn't about perfect relationships or easy answers. These stories are mirrors. They reflect parts of ourselves we don't always want to face. And I need you to stay until the very end, because what this story is actually about is not what the title makes you expect. The real meaning reveals itself slowly, quietly, just like loneliness does. Now, let me begin. My name is Lucy Anderson. When this story truly began, I was 33 years old, living in a small, slow-moving town in Michigan. The kind of town where nothing ever feels urgent, where time seems to stretch instead of rush. People wave at each other even when they don't know one another. The grocery store cashier remembers your name, your favorite brand of cereal, and asks about your parents. Seasons arrive exactly when you expect them to. No surprises, no chaos, no sudden changes. From the outside, my life fit perfectly into that rhythm. I worked as a high school guidance counselor. Every weekday, teenagers sat across from me in a small office painted in calming beige tones. They came in carrying anxiety, heartbreak, fear of the future, confusion about who they were supposed to become. They talked about loneliness. They talked about feeling invisible. They talked about being surrounded by people and still feeling empty. I listened. I nodded. I validated their feelings. I helped them put words to emotions they didn't yet know how to name. What none of them knew, what I never said out loud, was that after they left my office, after the door clicked shut behind them, I often stayed seated for a few extra minutes, staring at the wall, feeling the exact same things I had just helped them process. From the outside, my life looked stable, comfortable, even enviable. I had a respectable career, a warm, quiet home, and a husband I had been married to for 9 years. No public arguments, no scandals, no dramatic social media posts, no slammed doors or raised voices. People used to say it all the time. You're lucky, Lucy. You have such a peaceful marriage. And they weren't wrong. But what no one ever tells you is this. Peace and happiness are not the same thing. My husband's name is Mark Anderson. Mark worked in technology mostly from home. He was intelligent, reliable, methodical, the kind of man who paid bills on time and fixed things without being asked. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unkind. He simply lived inside himself. Mark believed silence prevented conflict. He believed that if problems weren't spoken out loud, they would eventually disappear on their own. If something wasn't discussed, then it wasn't real. And for a long time, I believed that too. Our marriage didn't collapse in a single moment. There was no betrayal, no screaming matches, no explosive arguments or shocking discoveries. What happened was quieter, and somehow much more painful. We drifted, slowly, silently. We still ate dinner at the same table, still shared the same couch, still slept in the same bed, but conversations became shorter. Laughter grew rare. Eye contact slowly disappeared. At night, we lay facing opposite walls, our backs sometimes touching, our minds miles apart. There was no intimacy, just routine. And routine, when left unchecked, can suffocate love without making a sound. The hardest part wasn't the loneliness itself. It was not knowing when it began. Loneliness doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a warning. It creeps in quietly, when no one asks how your day really was, when your thoughts stay trapped inside your own head, when being together no longer feels like connection. Some nights, I stared at the ceiling and wondered, is this just what marriage becomes? Is passion supposed to fade into silence? Is this normal? Or am I slowly disappearing? I told myself this was just adulthood, that long marriages naturally settle into quiet routines. But deep down, I felt invisible. What I didn't know then was that Mark felt the distance too. He noticed my forced smiles, my quiet sadness, the way I stopped talking about my day. But instead of addressing it, he withdrew further. Two people standing on opposite sides of the same problem, both afraid to name it, until one ordinary evening changed everything. That I was folding laundry in the living room. The television was on, but neither of us was watching it. Mark walked in and sat beside me on the couch. No phone, no laptop, no distractions, just silence. When I looked at him, I saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Vulnerability. "Lucy," he said quietly, "I've been thinking a lot." My hands froze mid-fold. "About what?" I asked. He took a slow breath. "About us." That single word felt heavier than it should have. "I know you're unhappy," he continued, "and I know I haven't been able to reach you the way I used to." For a moment I couldn't speak. This was the first time he had ever said it out loud. "You're right," I finally admitted. "I don't know when it happened, but something between us is missing." What he said next shocked me. "I want to try something different." "Different how?" I asked. He hesitated. "I've been reading," he said slowly, "about how some couples search for clarity. Not cheating, not betrayal, just understanding." My heart started pounding. "Say it clearly," I said. He looked down. "I want you to meet someone. Just once. Someone I choose." My chest tightened. "I'll be there," he added quickly. "Not involved. Just present. I want to understand what you're missing." At first I laughed. Then I cried. It sounded insane, painful, wrong. But beneath my anger was something far more dangerous. Hope. Hope that this might finally force honesty. A week later, Mark handed me a small piece of paper. A name. A time. "His name is Ethan," he said softly. "He understands the boundaries." The cafe was quiet. Dim Lili. Safe. Ethan wasn't extraordinary at first glance, but he was present. He asked questions. He listened. He didn't interrupt. For the first time in years, I felt heard. I laughed more in that 1 hour than I had in months. And when I left, guilt followed me home. That night, I didn't feel excitement. I felt grief, because the ache wasn't about Ethan. It was about everything I had been missing in my own marriage. The next morning, I sat across from Mark. "I don't want this again," I said. He nodded. "Neither do I." And for the first time in years, we talked. Honestly.